Most people believe that when someone turns cold and distant, it simply means they've lost interest or moved on. But when it comes to an avoidant partner, that assumption is usually wrong. The quiet you're feeling from them isn't always proof that they don't care. Very often, it's a shield they put up to protect themselves from feelings they never learned how to handle. They don't vanish because you stopped mattering to them. In most cases, they pull back because you started mattering more than they know how to admit, even to themselves. The calmer they look on the surface, the more chaotic things can be happening underneath. They might be checking your social media at 2 in the morning, writing out messages and deleting them before they're sent, or replaying old memories while imagining conversations that haven't happened yet. Even their most puzzling behavior, the kind that leaves you lying awake trying to make sense of it, usually says more than it hides. What looks like distance is frequently just an indirect, clumsy way of expressing something they can't say out loud. By the end of this video, you're going to start seeing these patterns in a completely new light. You'll understand why quiet doesn't always mean they've stopped feeling anything, why sudden bursts of warmth can be hiding a private struggle, and why the person who seems the most emotionally closed off is sometimes holding the strongest attachment of all without ever putting it into words. Hi, I'm Anne, and welcome back. Before we go any further, I want to ask you something. If you've ever had someone pull you close, only to suddenly push you away for no clear reason, type the words "I see you" down in the comments. Those 3 words tell me you've lived this confusion yourself, and they let me know exactly who tonight's conversation is for. If that sounds like your story, stay with me, because what's coming next might explain more than you expect. The first mind game usually shows up right after what felt like your best night together. You spend hours talking with total ease, laughing without trying, feeling a closeness that seems completely real. Their attention feels different this time, their eyes linger a little longer, and for a moment, you actually believe things are moving forward. You fall asleep hopeful. Then you wake up to nothing. No text, no call, not even a small message to say good morning. The silence is so sudden that you start doubting your own memory. You wonder if you misread the whole evening, if you imagined a connection that was never really there. But you didn't imagine anything. That connection was real, and that's exactly why the retreat happened. For many avoidant people, closeness becomes frightening the moment it starts to feel genuine. Small, surface-level moments feel safe enough, but once intimacy reaches a point where it actually means something, fear quietly takes over. Their instinct isn't to lean in, it's to step back, so they can feel like they're in control again. That disappearing act usually isn't a punishment for something you did wrong. It's a reaction to feelings they weren't ready to face. While you're wondering why they went quiet, they might be wondering why you suddenly take up so much space in their head. Their silence isn't always empty. Sometimes it's full of confusion, fear, and an internal argument you never get to see. When real emotion starts rising to the surface, pulling away becomes their automatic reflex, even though the connection itself is exactly what set it off. Mind game number 2 is the slow fade that somehow always turns into a sudden comeback. For days, sometimes weeks, you watch them drift further away. Their texts get shorter, the warmth disappears, and the whole thing slowly cools until you finally start telling yourself it's over. You begin to accept it. Maybe you even decide it's time to let go too. And right when you start doing that, they reach out. It's rarely a big apology or a heartfelt confession. It's something small, almost weightless, a random meme, an old inside joke, a message saying something reminded them of you. And just like that, the distance melts and you're pulled right back in. This isn't random. Many avoidant people can sense, almost instinctively, when someone is actually starting to let go. The idea of losing you completely creates a discomfort they didn't see coming. Instead of stepping up and fixing what's broken, they reconnect just enough to keep the thread alive. Most of them aren't doing this on purpose to manipulate you. They just feel this pull to check if you're still there, and they tell themselves it's harmless curiosity. In reality, it's usually attachment they haven't figured out how to name. Mind game number 3 happens when they open up completely, only to act like it never happened. One night, they let their guard down. They tell you about old wounds, private fears, insecurities they've never shared with anyone. It feels like a breakthrough, like the wall around them finally has a crack in it. But a few days later, everything shifts. They go cold again, distant, maybe even a little short with you, as if that whole conversation never took place. It leaves you completely thrown off. Here's the thing. Vulnerability doesn't feel the same to an avoidant as it does to most people. Instead of relief after opening up, they often feel exposed. Their nervous system kicks into protective mode almost immediately, trying to shield them from the discomfort of being truly seen. They're not necessarily pulling away because they regret trusting you. They're pulling away because they're overwhelmed that they trusted someone at all, especially someone who has become this important to them. And ironically, the deeper that conversation was, the more likely they are to retreat afterward, because real closeness feels comforting and terrifying at the exact same time. Mind game number 4 is the subtle jealousy test hidden inside a casual conversation. Out of nowhere, another name comes up. A coworker, an old friend, someone who messaged them recently. They mention it like it's nothing at all. But while they're talking, they're watching you closely, reading every flicker on your face. The smallest hint of jealousy or concern tells them exactly what they wanted to know. Unlike people who can openly ask for reassurance, avoidant people usually struggle to admit they need it. Asking directly would mean admitting they're vulnerable, and that's uncomfortable territory for them. So instead, they create these little indirect tests to see how much you still care. The stronger their hidden feelings, the more often these moments tend to show up. Deep down, they're not doing this to entertain themselves. They're searching for proof that they still matter to you the way you matter to them. Before we move to the next one, remember this. If any of this sounds painfully familiar, it doesn't mean you're overthinking or imagining things that aren't there. Sometimes, clarity comes exactly from recognizing patterns that used to feel impossible to understand. Once you see them clearly, it changes how you interpret everything, and it stops you from blaming yourself for confusion that was never yours to carry in the first place. Mind game number 5 is the exhausting loop of warmth followed by distance, a cycle that feels unpredictable in the moment, but actually follows the same rhythm every single time. One day they're fully present, sending sweet messages, making plans, showing real affection. Then, with no warning, everything changes. Their replies get short, their energy fades, and it feels like someone completely different has taken their place. So naturally, you start searching for a reason. You replay every conversation, question your own actions, wonder if you did something to cause it. Most of the time, you didn't. This cycle usually says more about their internal battle than anything you've done. When there's distance, they feel safe enough to actually miss you, which pulls them back in. But once real closeness returns, vulnerability creeps in again, and their instinct is to create space once more. As the gap widens, they start missing you again, and the whole thing repeats. The only thing that actually breaks this pattern is you stepping out of it. Once you stop chasing every warm moment and stop bracing for every cold one, the cycle loses its grip on you. That's when the truth becomes obvious. Either they finally face their fears and build something steadier, or it becomes clear they were never truly ready to give you the consistency you deserve. Mind game number 6 is the perfectly timed little message that shows up right when you're finally starting to heal. Life starts feeling lighter. You think about them less, you sleep better, you're spending time with friends again, slowly becoming the version of yourself that existed before all this confusion started. And then, almost unbelievably, they resurface. Maybe they like an old photo, view your story, or send a simple, "How have you been?" The timing feels almost too perfect, like they somehow sensed you were finally letting go. It might feel mysterious, but many avoidant people grow uneasy when they sense someone is no longer emotionally focused on them. Instead of coming back with real commitment or clear intentions, they make just enough contact to remind you they're still around. The point usually isn't to rebuild anything real. It's simply to keep that emotional thread from snapping completely. That's why it matters to name these small gestures for what they are. A brief flicker of attention is not the same as steady effort. real availability, or an actual future together. You deserve something whole, not scattered reminders that leave you questioning everything all over again. Mind game number 7 is painting a beautiful future in words while never taking the steps to make it real. They talk about the trips you'll take one day, the goals you'll reach together, a future so vividly described you can almost picture living inside it. Listening to them, it all feels hopeful and believable because their enthusiasm sounds completely genuine in the moment. But the second you try turning any of it into an actual plan, things change. No dates get picked, no reservations get made, and slowly those conversations just stop coming up. The future stays permanently somewhere out on the horizon, always mentioned, never reached. Most of the time, this isn't deliberate deception. In that moment, they genuinely believe what they're saying, because imagining the future feels emotionally safe. The trouble starts when imagination has to become reality. Real commitment demands vulnerability, consistency, and action. And those tend to be exactly the things avoidant people struggle with the most. So without meaning to, they hand you dreams instead of decisions, possibility instead of progress. And you're left waiting for promises that never quite turn into anything solid, while they stay comfortably stuck in a future that never actually arrives. Before we keep going, if any of this feels familiar, drop the words "I see you" in the comments if you haven't already. Those 3 words let me know who's really connecting with this, and they're exactly why conversations like this one keep getting made. Mind game number 8 might be the hardest one to spot because it doesn't even look like a game. It sounds like honesty. They tell you they're not ready, that you deserve someone better, that they're afraid they'll only end up hurting you. Their words sound thoughtful, mature, even caring, so you take them at face value. But underneath those words, something more complicated is often happening. Sometimes they aren't pulling away because they feel nothing. They're pulling away because the relationship has become genuinely important, and that intensity scares them. Instead of risking failure down the road, they choose to end it now, while they still feel like they have some control over the outcome. In their mind, walking away first hurts less than facing the possibility of losing someone they truly value after getting fully attached. It's a form of self-protection that ends up creating the very heartbreak they were trying to avoid in the first place. Long after it's over, many of them keep wondering what might have happened if they'd stayed a little longer, trusted themselves a little more, or had one more honest conversation. If this happens to you, don't automatically assume you were too hard to love. Sometimes you were exactly what they wanted, and exactly what scared them the most. Mind game number 9 is the silence that ends up saying more than words ever could. This last pattern often communicates everything without a single message. When an avoidant person still has real feelings, their silence rarely feels empty. It carries a weight that's hard to put into words. Even after weeks or months of no contact, it can feel like they're still quietly there, somewhere in the background of your life. They might watch your stories without ever responding, revisit places that hold memories from your time together, or keep your number saved long after telling everyone they've moved on. Around friends, they'll insist they're completely over it, yet something about the way they say it tells a different story. Silence becomes its own language because staying quiet feels safer than admitting feelings they don't know how to put into words. Somewhere underneath it all, part of them might still be holding on, wishing they had the courage to close the distance they created, but never quite finding the nerve to take that first step. But understanding all of this doesn't mean it's your job to sit around waiting for them. It doesn't mean your purpose is to decode every silence or become an expert at reading someone else's emotional fear. Compassion and understanding matter, but they should never cost you your own peace. You are not responsible for fixing someone who refuses to face their own struggles. You're not meant to spend your life waiting for them to finally feel ready. Most of all, you deserve a relationship built on consistency, not confusion. You deserve someone who chooses you out loud, who communicates honestly, who doesn't disappear the second things start feeling real. Healthy love isn't built on tests, disappearing acts, or tiny crumbs of affection that leave you constantly guessing where you stand. You deserve more than the occasional bit of attention. You deserve a relationship where effort and presence are given freely, not reluctantly. So if you're sitting there tonight wondering whether they still think about you, the honest answer might very well be yes. They may think about you more than they'll ever admit, and those feelings might stay with them for a long time. But that isn't really the question that should shape your future. The real question is whether you're willing to keep trading your peace for someone else's unresolved fear. Are you willing to keep putting your own life on hold, hoping they'll eventually become ready? Or are you finally ready to accept that being secretly wanted isn't the same as being openly chosen? There's a huge difference between someone quietly carrying feelings and someone consistently showing up to build a real life with you. Genuine relationships aren't held together by hidden emotion alone. They need action, honesty, and the willingness to choose each other, again and again, every single day. You don't need one final explanation to move forward. You don't need a dramatic confession or some perfect closure to start healing. What you need is to become someone who stops digging for hidden meaning and starts making decisions based on what's actually in front of them. You need the clarity to tell the difference between someone who occasionally reaches for you and someone who consistently stands beside you. Walking away doesn't always come from anger or bitterness. Sometimes it comes from quiet confidence and real self-respect. One of the biggest truths about avoidant behavior is this: the ones who genuinely come back usually do it because they've put in the real work of changing. The ones who never change tend to repeat the same pattern over and over with different people in different seasons of life. Either way, your job stays exactly the same. Build a life full of purpose, honesty, and peace. Surround yourself with relationships that actually reflect your values so completely that whether someone comes back or not is no longer the center of your story. If this conversation reminded you of your own strength tonight, type "I see you" one more time before you go. Those 3 words mean more than a comment. They mark the moment you stopped feeling invisible and started remembering your own worth. I know what it's like to lie awake replaying conversations, searching for answers that never come, hoping tomorrow will finally feel different. I also know the quiet courage it takes to keep believing in love after living through this kind of confusion. If that's where you are right now, hold on to this. You are not falling behind, you are not broken, and you are not too late for the love you actually deserve. The right love for you won't require endless guessing, constant proving, or emotional auditions. Real love moves toward you with consistency, honesty, and intention. It never leaves you questioning your own worth. So take everything you've heard tonight and carry it with you. The next time someone repeats these patterns, you'll recognize them so much faster. Trust yourself a little more and choose your own peace without feeling guilty about it. That's what real healing actually looks like. It isn't about shutting people out or closing your heart off completely. It's about refusing to keep giving pieces of yourself to people who won't meet you with the same care you're willing to give. You deserve a relationship where the games finally stop, where love is shown through actions and not just words, and where someone chooses you fully, with their mind, their heart, and every single step they take toward you. If tonight's conversation gave you a little more clarity, stay close, because there's a lot more we still need to talk about. Take care of yourself, be patient with your healing, and I'll see you in the next one.